Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, we're a week away from Christmas.
I know it's coming up fast, isn't it?
Yep. And we've talked a lot on past shows about how different holidays set off different things for people, like report cards,
Yep.
Emotional report cards, financial report cards, where people sit back and maybe at the end of the year or at the tax season, and they kind of reassess and look at where they are and where they're going. The holidays is no exception. And today we're going to be speaking all about finances for people in transition, either through, in this particular case, with Janet Galloway from B&B Strategic Management. She specializes in working with federal employees and women, primarily women, going through death or divorce, primarily divorce. And they didn't, Janet, I don't remember ever taking any courses in college about transitions in life. I don't remember taking any courses in college that had any application to the day-to-day issues that come up as we grow as adults and through families. And that's what you do 24/7. So you didn't take those courses in college, did you?
Actually, behavioral finance is a new trend.
Oh.
And so we focus on those transitions and how it affects not only the financial person or the financial life of people, but also their emotional side.
So you are a certified financial planner.
Yes.
And you're also a certified divorce financial analyst.
Yes.
I did not even know that that was a thing.
There's actually 2 of us in town now.
Is that right?
There is.
And tell me how you tell me about a certified divorce financial analyst, because I've never heard. I wasn't aware of it.
So a certified divorce financial analyst helps through the transition. So let me tell you about one of my clients, for instance. She came in, she'd been married for 30 years, and she was about to go through a divorce. It was a very scary situation for her. She didn't know what her future looked like. Her soon-to-be ex-husband had handled all of the finances for years. She was scared out of her wits that she wouldn't be able to afford her life, that her entire lifestyle was going to change, but she knew it was an important time in her life to make that change. So I was able to help her through several meetings with her. The first time she walked in, she was, quite frankly, a mess. She was emotionally, she was just really scared. You fast forward to a year later, and she comes in, she's like, I'm afraid. And now this is a little unique, but we sat down and we just put on some calm music, calmed down, and then we were able to address her financial situation. What does her budget look like? What money is she going to have coming in? How much can she afford to live on?
Right.
Because her entire future had changed.
Right.
And then I also had the opportunity to introduce her to newcomers of Pinehurst area.
Right.
So divorce isn't only about finances, it's also about recreating your future. So I was able to introduce her to some of these amazing people that I had the opportunity to meet.
Right.
So she recreated her life, not only financially, but also personally, and she is flourishing.
The newcomers, they're a great organization. Dorothy, they were on our show many years ago.
Yes, it was quite a while ago they were on.
And everyone thought, well, you have to be a member of the Pinehurst Country Club, or you have to play golf. You don't have to do any of that.
No, you just have to be in Pinehurst, right?
Yeah, with all the people moving our way from up north, from the Midwest. Newcomers is continuing to flourish.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's because there's so few native Southerners
Very true.
anymore. So tell me about how you got to Moore County because, by your own admission, you were an Army brat?
Yes, I was an Army brat. So my ex-husband was stationed, actually still is stationed at Fort Bragg. So we were in Kansas, and I had finished my degree and started my financial advisor career, and we were never going to move again. 9 months later, the Army said, you're moving.
Right. So you've been in Moore County for how long?
2017, my youngest daughter graduated high school in Fayetteville, and so I moved over here to Pinehurst.
Okay. And you started B&B Strategic when?
B&B Strategic Management really just started this year.
Okay. And you work with Fourth Hefner.
Yes. Fourth is an amazing asset to any company.
He was a guest on our show, and his company is called the Faculty Resource.
Yes.
Tell me what kind of work you guys do together that got you from here to there.
Well, I'm not his normal client,
Okay.
because I'm kind of more in the getting everything out of my head phase. And it's just me right now. My sister has joined me part-time.
Oh.
So Fourth generally works with somebody who's a little bit more established, so he was kind enough to work with me. Based on my experience and my education, I know what right looks like. I know the processes and systems to help people. And he's helping me get it out of my head, get it on paper, develop those processes and systems, and focus on my goals, and then develop a plan to get there.
How is what you do different from a financial planner or a financial advisor?
That's a great question. Do you mean?
I don't know what I mean. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, for instance, I know people who work with investment counselors, financial, to help them build their portfolios, advise them on investment strategies, et cetera, et cetera.
That is a piece of what I do.
Okay.
So if you'll notice on the news now, you'll hear even like Fidelity. I was watching TV last night. Fidelity has a big commercial on creating your financial plan. That is an important piece, and investments are a piece of that. But really, when you ask somebody, what is a comprehensive financial plan? I mean, nobody really knows what that is. That's our industry speak.
Yeah, right.
So what I do is not only focus on the dollars and cents, I also focus on how you grew up with money, your money script. So research has shown that everybody...
Your money script?
Money script.
I like that. Okay. I like that.
So in our society, we don't talk about money, right? So it's taboo.
Right.
But everybody saw how you grew up with money.
Right.
You saw how your family used money.
Oh, yeah.
So research has shown that imprinted a money script and it affects how you spend money going forward.
Uh-huh.
So research has shown
Makes sense.
There are 4 money scripts.
Okay.
And only one has a productive impact on how you spend money going forward.
Okay.
So when I do my comprehensive financial planning, I don't start with the dollars and cents and the investments. I start by understanding my clients. How do you think about money? How do you feel about money? So the other piece of that is the money mindset. So there's 3 money mindsets, and I'll give you a story to explain the money mindsets in just a second. But There's commitment, there's fear, and there's happiness. So, Bill, if I ask you, if I give you a large sum of money that can't go towards any of your financial goals, what would you do with it?
It can't go towards any of my financial goals.
Correct.
Probably a combination of doing some home improvements, maybe a vacation, and indulge myself in things that I collect. That would be my answer.
So based on your answer, you have a happiness money mindset.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you a story about how this plays out in a couple.
Okay.
So I was talking to a couple one time, asked them the same question.
Okay.
Now, remember, a large sum of money for every person is very different.
Right.
To some people, $5,000 is a large sum of money. To other people, $100,000 is a large sum of money, which is why I framed the question that way. So I asked the wife this question, what would you do with a large sum of money? And she said, I would go on vacation.
Okay.
And I said, well, why? Why would you go on vacation? And she told the story about when she was a little girl and wanting to take dance lessons, and her family couldn't afford it. So to her, that dance created joy in her life. So she wanted to create that joy and happiness for her family. So then I looked at her husband and I asked him the same question. I said, what would you do with a large sum of money? And he said, I would stuff it in my mattress. I said, well, why? And he said, because I see my parents, they don't have 2 dimes to rub together. They've worked hard all of their life, and I don't want to end up that way. So you have a fear money mindset, because he's going to stuff in the mattress, and a happiness money mindset, where she wants to have fun. Now, I looked at them and I said, does this create conflict when you guys talk about how you're going to spend money?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about pitting one person against the other. It's about how do we compromise? So I understand he wants to have some cash on hand because that's important to him. And I understand that she values happiness and joy. So maybe we spend a little bit less on the vacation rather than going, this is important to me and let's fight about it because this is important to me. Now we can have a conversation about what we value, why we value it, and achieve our goals based on those.
So Dorothy, she's really not a financial planner. She's really a marriage counselor.
That's what it sounds like.
And should be talking to newlyweds at the beginning, at the inception, because isn't it true that many marriages, the number one problem is money?
Absolutely. And
Right?
that goes back to, we don't talk about money in our society. When you first start dating, do you say, hey, let me see your checkbook? No.
Right.
That would be very rude.
Right.
But how you spend really reflects who you are and what you value. Money, time, energy. That's what we have in this life. Money, time, and energy. Where you put those 3 things is what you value the most.
So you're also a coach.
Of sorts, yeah. That's where I flourish the most, is watching my clients grow personally, financially, and if they choose professionally, I cheer them on.
You mentioned you have 4 children and you were divorced. So there's a personal motivation for you paying it forward or taking your experiences to the next level. You've evolved to this position based on your experience?
That would be accurate. I have gone through some trials and tribulations, and I understand how alone it feels when you're in the middle of that. So having professional help through that situation, the legal, the financial, and the emotional, so that you can move forward, it's huge, because it's so, when you go through that kind of a transition, a divorce, it is the death of a future you anticipated. Nobody expects to get married and then get divorced.
Right.
That's not the future you envision. But then when you look at the statistics, 50% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages, 73% of third marriages.
Okay. That doesn't surprise me, because I'm a big believer in the tenet that people tend to repeat their patterns, but they change their environment, so they think they're starting over.
Which is why it's so important to get that professional help, so that you can heal those hurts and move forward to joy and happiness. Yes.
Yeah. By the time someone is 40 or 50, I mean, they're set in stone. I mean, their patterns are there, and they just keep repeating them, but they fool themselves, and they think they're tweaking this or tweaking that, but their basic tenets haven't changed.
So I used to think that.
Okay.
And
but you can change. Okay.
So this is where Second Saturday has really been very beneficial for me as well. So Second Saturday is a nationwide 501c3. Second Saturday is it's associated with wife.org, which was started back in the 1980s, and realizing divorce is happening more often than it used to.
Right.
And realizing that there are the 3 tenets. You need the legal, which is transactional, because divorce is a legal transaction. You need the financial, which is relational, because it's an ongoing relationship. You can help through the divorce, but then after as well. And then you also have therapists. So you have those 3 professionals coming together to help heal the emotional wounds, so you don't repeat the patterns. So you have the financial, helping with your financial goals going forward. Can I exist? What changes do I need to make in my financial life so that I can flourish going forward? And then you have the legal. So the second Saturday of every month, we actually have a Zoom meeting with Marissa Curry, myself as the financial, and then I have 3 therapists. One is a financial. I'm sorry, not financial. One is actually a hypnotherapist. So she works on those underlying emotions, which is why you're repeating the patterns, because you haven't healed those underlying emotions.
Right.
Tamara is more of a success coach and more of a Tony Robbins type of changing your thinking.
Right.
And then, of course, I forget her name as I'm talking right now. I've got a third one.
That's okay.
Who she's written a book on money coaching and relationships with families. Because to your point, it's not just about the money. It's about what you value. And she did a phenomenal presentation on one of our second Saturdays explaining how the grief process actually applies to divorce.
This all starts in childhood. It all starts the way we're raised. It all starts the way society tells us what love is and commitment is, and it's not the Hollywood versions of what we see. We get inundated with these romantic versions of tomorrow, and oh my gosh, when the reality sets in, now you're stripped away from, it's the everyday bit of living that puts people to the test, and then the reconditioning that has to happen after the fact. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, I have a couple of, I have a ton of questions to ask. We're going to come back.
Okay.
You've just opened up so many different mindsets. We're speaking with Janet Galloway all about women in transition. We also want to talk about federal employees transitionalizing. Basically, you specialize in change, and transition is what you do. You're an agent for change. This is All Things More County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our talk show with Janet Galloway of B&B Strategic Management. We're going to continue to focus on the divorce aspect of your business as a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst. I have many friends who, I see them, they're married, and I say, how are you doing? And they say, living the dream. And anytime someone says they're living the dream, I know they're not. And it's sort of like some people are just stuck, and they are just accepting where they are. They don't even know that they're not happy. And many times in our business, in real estate, we spend far too much time working with clients, selling their homes because of a divorce. And in this military community, it seems more prevalent than not.
There's a lot of unique challenges in a military couple. I mean, if you think, so civilians, you get married,
Yeah.
and you anticipate living a life with your significant other.
Right.
In the military, you get married, and then your significant other is gone for
Right.
months at a time,
Right.
and may die.
Right.
He or she may never come back.
Right.
That is a huge stress to a relationship. And let's say, hopefully, your significant other does come back. Well, you've carried on the household. You know how things run, and when the kids go here, when the kids go there, what you need to do to get things done and make sure it happens, because you have you to rely on as a military spouse.
Yeah.
That military person, active duty person, comes back. How does that person fit into, I know how to get everything done?
Right.
So that creates challenges in a military situation, a military spouse situation. The major thing that's missing is the help to communicate through those challenges, and realizing almost every military couple deals with those same challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a lot of stress. And there's a lot of projection, too, in relationships where people are not always together, and when they are, people project on each other. And unfortunately, there was never a course in projecting and what it meant. And people can be oversensitive, and things can just fall apart that way.
Communicating.
Communicating.
If you can communicate effectively your needs to another, that is the most essential skill that you can have in life, personally and professionally.
Don't you think that we've raised a lot of people, a lot of kids to be spoiled and to have unrealistic expectations of what a relationship is supposed to be or feel like?
Well, you raise a very good point, and that goes back to the Disney movies, right?
Yeah.
The prince and the princess, they meet, they have this beautiful courtship,
Right.
and then they live happily ever after.
Right.
Nobody really talks about what happily ever after looks like.
Yeah.
It was interesting moving to this area because coming from a military background, you're around a lot of those military spouses coming and going. I didn't really have an example of people who had been married, happily married, for 40 plus years. Moving to Pinehurst, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of couples who've been married for over 40 years, and they still like each other.
Right.
And it's an amazing experience. They're some of my favorite people.
Right. What do you say? What do you say to someone who's getting a divorce? That they said, "Why? I have a divorce attorney. Why do I need you? I already have an attorney who's handling my divorce for me."
That's a great question. And that comes up often because, to your point, to begin with, nobody's heard of a certified divorce financial analyst.
Right.
So as a certified divorce financial analyst, my specialty is not the law. The attorney's expertise is the law. And a divorce is it's a transaction. It's a legal transaction. You need the attorney, absolutely. And what I do is I work with the attorneys. I do not step on their toes. I stay in my lane. I can create documents that supplement what the attorney does. I can help the clients create the financial affidavit, not necessarily create the affidavit, but help come up with their budget. If you're not familiar with a financial affidavit, when you go through a divorce, you have to tell the court how much your life costs for both spouses. They have to come up with a budget, if you will. Even as a financial planner, that is a sticking point. When I say to somebody, how much does your life cost? Often people have no idea.
Right.
So now you're going through a divorce, you're in an emotional situation, you're not exactly in the happiest state, and you have to create a budget. Even when you're in a happy state, that's a hard thing. So I can help the clients come up with a financial affidavit and also create reports with the family law software that are unique. I could do the net present value of a pension, for instance. I can also, as a CDFA, I can actually get on the stand and testify based on the financial matters, only the financial matters.
Have you been in that situation?
I have not yet, thank heavens, because that would be a challenge. I mean, it's in an emotionally, divorce is emotionally charged. And if it goes to court, then that's going to be an emotionally charged situation.
I've been called to court to testify about a home's value.
Oh, okay.
Especially where the asset is being sold and the payout from one to the other has to be established and the value.
Yes.
And you're right, it's not pleasant.
It's not. And that's how I can support the attorney doing what they do. The attorney's job is the law, and that is what they are experts in. My job is the financial situation of the client, and that's what I'm an expert in.
How do the attorneys, do they welcome you with open arms, or do they fold their arms and go, huh?
So it's interesting that you asked that because collaborative divorce is actually new across the nation.
Okay.
And North Carolina law tends to pit one spouse against the other rather than encouraging them to work together. Mm-hmm. Now, in Raleigh, there's a practice, a collaborative practice that's very successful, and they bring them all together. Okay. You've got the CDFA, you've got both attorneys, and both spouses, soon to be ex-spouses, have agreed, we are going to work this out. You also include a mediator. And in that case, the CDFA would act as a financial neutral. So I'm not here on one spouse or the other. I'm just here to say, hey, these are the facts of the case financially. This is what it looks like.
Okay. How do you get paid? Do you get paid on a fee basis, an hourly basis? how does that work in case someone is thinking, I need what it is that you're giving?
So for the certified financial advisor work, that is a flat fee basis.
Okay.
And I really don't know until I actually talk to somebody. When I first got into this industry, I used to hate it. I'd go to my boss and I'd say, hey, so-and-so has XYZ. What's the answer? And she'd say, well, it depends. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's black and white. I was a finance major. You do the analysis and you come up with an answer. No, it really depends. And now I find myself giving that answer all of the time.
It depends.
Because to your point, everybody's mindsets, everybody's life experience, everybody's needs, they're different.
So when somebody passes away and you lose a loved one, you are then forced to go through the estate, the planning the funeral, all the things that you're not emotionally ready to do. And yet you are on a timeline to get it done. It's like a race to the end. I would think the same thing in a divorce. Sometimes people are maybe not in their best mindset to be able to make these determinations and decisions that's in their best long-term interest.
That is a very great point, and that's why I finally remembered the third therapist's name. Her name is Nisla Love.
Okay.
When she presented the grief process as part of the divorce, it's so divorce and death, you have the legal component,
right?
You have the financial component,
right?
And you have the emotional component.
Right.
That's where those transitions are very similar. And you are in an emotional space with both of those. And hiring professionals who have been through the process, understand what things are you're going to need going forward, and also helping you through the process, realizing you're not alone.
What is the first interview when someone comes? But by the way, where should people reach you if they want to set up an initial meeting, consultation?
Thank you for asking that, Bill. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
The easiest way is to go to my website at bbstrategic.com. That's B as in boy, strategic.com.
Okay. And they can set up an appointment with you, an in-person appointment?
Absolutely. So what I see is I like to work with people I like. So for me, the initial consultation is an interview both ways. So
right.
And in that interview, I encourage people to interview multiple financial professionals, because if I'm not a good fit, then find somebody that is. So during that first interview, I ask a lot of questions.
Okay. But as you said, most financial professionals, there are only two here in Moore County that specialize with divorce?
And there is, I was the
aspect?
first, yes, I was the first to get the CDFA in this area.
Okay.
And then during COVID, I became aware of I don't know his name, sorry, but
that's okay.
But yeah, there is one other CDFA.
Okay. And the majority of the business that you do in that realm is with women, not men.
It is with women. I can identify with them
Okay.
on a deeper level because I've been through it personally.
Okay. No, makes sense. So they would start by going to your website, bbstrategic.com.
Yes.
And go from there.
Yes, thank you.
You've been in, tell me about any success stories that you've had in this realm.
With the divorce?
Yes.
Okay, I'll tell you about another one. Actually, she was a military spouse.
Okay.
And she came to me and unfortunately, it was a really toxic situation.
Yeah.
She was considering divorce, but wasn't quite there yet. She had attended one of my Women, Wealth, and Wine events where we just casually talk about financial matters. And I advised her to copy all the financial documents that you have access to. I mean, if you're a married couple and one person, even if one person is taking care of all the accounts, both partners should know where the accounts are, have access to statements. So hopefully you guys can work things out. And if you don't, at least you have copies of things like tax returns, checking account statements, savings account statements, any investment accounts, 401ks, TSP, have access, just copy everything that you can. Nowadays, you can get a PDF app on your phone, so you can just take a picture with your phone and it can make it into a PDF. It's very, very simple. And now you're armed with, hopefully you don't need it, but you're armed with information. So she went and did that surreptitiously. She went and got copies of everything. Ultimately, she did end up going through a divorce. And what we found in all those copies that she sent, she sent to me because they're financial documents. She didn't deal with the stuff. She didn't know what it was. She's just like, here, Janet, here you go.
Yep.
We actually found that he tried to move his TSP and roll it over to an IRA that she wasn't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the beautiful thing with the TSP is he needed her signature to do that.
I see.
So he was not able to do that.
Yeah.
We were able to prove that he tried, though.
Yeah.
Because she provided me the documents. I spent hours going through the documents, and I'm like, hey, here you go. This is what this document means. So even though she didn't know really what she was looking at or what she was copying, she was prepared when she hired the attorney, and she could go to the attorney armed with that information.
When I was a kid, I'll age myself, there was a show on TV called Divorce Court.
I remember that.
And we used to watch it. And many of the rulings were mental cruelty. And I didn't know what that meant as a kid. And I would ask my parents, what does that mean? It's not physical. And today, I see that people's self-esteem, after so many years of maybe being in a marriage, they don't even know that it's low. They're not even aware. I mean, I guess the mental cruelty part is that you've been knocked down a couple of notches, and you wake up one day and you don't know how you got there and you got to deal with that all the time.
You make an excellent point, and I talk to my 26-year-old daughter about that all the time because the relationships never start out that way.
Right.
They're beautiful. They're
Right.
great. They're
Right.
wonderful.
Right.
But then over time.
Right.
So,
right. You don't even know.
But rebuilding that through
Rebuilding
the
it.
financial and also the professional and the emotional side of it.
Janet Galloway is our guest. She's a certified divorce financial analyst. You can reach out to her at bbstrategic.com. She's here in Southern Pines. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to All Things Moore County. Janet Galloway is our guest. I think we could talk the entire show about the divorce aspect of what you do. It's clear to me that we live in a world where divorce is on the rise. People's expectations are unrealistic, and they all go back to childhood and our entertainment mediums and our society. You mentioned a couple of people from Saturday. Tell me the name of the...
It's Second Saturday.
Okay. Putting together a panel of your cohorts to come in and to have a roundtable discussion. I would love to do that. And if you want to coordinate that, because I think this is a topic that is not discussed. It's just dealt with in a transactional way, like you mentioned, through the attorneys. But there's so many aspects to it that run with very deep roots.
I would really appreciate the opportunity to do that, Bill.
Just
Thank you.
let me know. Again, you can go to bbstrategic.com. You can do some preliminary reading. And if you want to get in touch with Janet, she's located in Southern Pines, and that's the best way to go, through the website. Transition is a key part of what you deal with in marriages, but also with federal employees who are retiring. Can you talk a little bit about how your assistance with federal employees, obviously it's different than it would be in a divorce situation, because this is where a union stays intact.
We hope. And back to the divorce for just 1 second. We do not promote divorce. I want to make that very clear.
Right.
I do not wish that on my worst enemy.
Right.
I do not promote divorce. I support people going through it.
Sure.
So, and back to the Chartered Federal Employee Benefit Consultant, I just earned that designation on Friday, so very excited.
And tell me the name of that designation again.
The Chartered Federal Employee Benefit Consultant.
Again, I did not even know that we needed that.
So my goal is to make sure that I have understanding and education specific to the niches that I'm serving. So for federal employees, think about it this way. We all know if you're local, Fort Bragg is not that far from here.
Right.
Well, Fort Bragg is like a city in and of itself.
Right.
To the civilian people, we know that there are active duty military people on Fort Bragg. Well, Fort Bragg is a city, so you've got a post office, you've got schools, you've got all of the services that we have in Pinehurst and Moore County are actually on Fort Bragg. But not everybody on Fort Bragg is active duty military.
But they're earmarked towards serving the military population.
Towards government service.
Okay.
So there are federal employees in service of the government, which serves wherever the government says they need them.
Okay.
So different than active duty, where the government says you're going to go here in 3 years and you're going to go to war. Federal employees serve, yes, the military community, but not only the military community.
Right.
Because we have postal workers here in Moore
Sure,
County.
that's right.
And they're federal employees.
That's right.
You've got the VA employees. They're also federal employees.
That's right.
So those benefits are very unique. When people retire from government service, how can I frame it? Think about when you go to work and you know that you're going to get a paycheck every couple of weeks or every month. You know, for 20 years, that's been your lifestyle.
Right.
You know that your health benefits are covered. You know that your family is going to be covered with a life insurance that the government provides. Well, 20, 30 years, now it's, you might be getting a little bit older. You might be ready to slow down a little bit. What does the next phase of your life look like? What does your paycheck look like? If you've saved in the TSP, how do you put that to the best use? Or if you've saved in an IRA, how do you put the financial resources that you've saved and worked so hard for to work for you in retirement? And then also, on top of that, what benefits are unique to the federal employees that the government offers, those employees who've given 20 to 30 years to the government?
The mentality of a federal employee and the psychology behind how they've lived their lives changes when they retire, right?
It does.
But they may not be equipped to understand the nature of the transition that they're going through, or that they're going to be going through, because they're going to be now working independently.
That's a piece of every retiree,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Understanding the benefits that the government provides in that transition is important. So for federal employees, the government actually hires independent contractors to come in and teach the federal employees what their retirement benefits are.
Gotcha.
That's how complicated these benefits can be.
Gotcha.
And how detailed, if you check the wrong box,
Yeah.
now your spouse doesn't have a life insurance benefit, or doesn't have a survivor benefit on your pension, or if you pass away, your spouse doesn't have health benefits from the federal government. It's knowing which box to check, how much to leave your spouse, and all of that goes back to your financial plan. What do your finances look like? What do your investments look like? What are your financial goals? So taking all of the federal employee benefits and your financial pieces of the puzzle and creating that plan gives those federal employees that comfort level.
Our economy, our government has been in transition for many years. Programs are added or cut or slashed. Benefits change. We live in perilous times, I believe, and the future is not guaranteed for anybody the way it used to be. We're not in a cradle-to-grave mentality in this country. People will move on a dime for a job. So there's the unknown that you have to deal with.
There's a lot of unknown. So it goes back to history, right? When 20, 30, 40 years ago, people would go to work for a corporation, and they would retire from that corporation, and they'd have a pension for life. Well, back, I'm probably going to get the time frame wrong, but 80s, I believe it's in the 80s, the 401k was introduced, and this is why. Those large corporations who are paying large pensions to retirees realize they can't afford that going forward forever. So now the onus is on the employee to save for retirement via 401ks, IRAs. Now with federal employees, they do still have that pension and their savings. So you've got both groups of people, civilians and the federal employees, However, when they get to retirement and have that transition, it's still very shocking to the system because they derived value from going to work every day. Having that peer group that they talk to every day, adding value to that company or to the government in that position was where they had their value. So what does that look like afterwards? A lot of times, again, going historically, people used to think, okay, I'm going to retire at 65. I'm going to sit on a fishing pier. I'm going to fish. I'm going to relax. I'm done. Well, now what we see is people kind of practicing retirement, if you will. We see people retiring and then either getting a part-time job or starting some sort of entrepreneurial type of business where it's their passion. It's not necessarily their livelihood, but it's their passion, and they get to choose to go to work. But that transition is a challenge. How do I go from working every day with peers and support and adding value to now I'm retired?
What about the aspect of survivor benefits, survivorship? People are going to retire if their spouses, when one predeceases the other, are those things addressed as well at the same time when they're both living and retiring in a healthy way, hopefully?
That is a great question, and nobody likes to talk about it.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to talk about our ultimate demise.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and that all goes back to the financial plan.
Yeah.
You do the comprehensive financial plan, looking at how people think and feel about money.
Yeah.
Look at what resources they have.
Yeah.
Look at how much they need to spend.
Yeah.
And then we can actually give accurate advice on the survivor benefits, what's needed. If you need a life insurance policy to cover your spouse if something happens to you so that they can live comfortably, because, a man is not a plan, or another spouse is not a plan. What do your finances look like? You want to make sure that your spouse and your loved one is taken care of. It all goes back to the financial plan, the benefits, and all of the things that we've been talking about. We've been focusing a lot on the emotional side of the transition. It does all relate back to the resources and the plan, the financial plan.
Yeah. We started the show, you were talking about the relationships people have to money and the foundations with which they bring to the table as they set out in their life. But as we're talking, you're getting more specific into the nitty-gritty of the money and how things are allocated. But it seems to me like the combination of the two make for a better a seasoned piece of meat, if you will. If you're going to be grilling a steak and you want it properly marinated, there are steps that you have to take to do it properly. You can't just throw the marinade on the steak and throw it on the grill. It's got to simmer. It's got to seep. You've got to establish a base foundation, right?
That is an excellent way to put it. I know when I first started getting out into this community, people will come up to me and say, how much are you making for your clients?
Right.
I'm like, well, it all goes back to a comprehensive financial plan based on their personal goals, and we use buckets. If they need the money in the next 3 years, we're not taking a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And if they can wait 10 years, we're taking risk. So how much am I making for my clients?
Yeah.
The answer is the answer I didn't like when I first started the industry. It depends.
Right. It's obvious to me that you have a servant's heart and that you lead with it. And it's an aspect of relationship termination or transition that hasn't really been dealt with. At least it's not on the forefront of the public conversation. But the underlying themes of so much of what you're talking about seems like a very, very valuable service. And every person's different, right? Everyone brings a different story to the table. But
and that's the beauty of what I get to do.
Yeah.
I get to experience their stories and help them create those stories going forward.
So it's definitely relationship based, and that expression, tailored to your needs. I hate that expression. I don't know if there's a business that hasn't used it. I don't want to know that something is tailored to my needs. To me, it sounds cookie cutter and unimaginative and not creative. You do a lot of eyeball to eyeball contact, and it's heart to heart, and you really get to know your clients.
Yes.
Fascinating stuff. I definitely want to have you come back with the people on your panel, and let's do a show in early 2022. So we can get into maybe some more of the specifics of whichever aspect you think is worthy of putting on the air.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I love what I do, and I love who I get to do it for.
It's obvious. Yeah, you're a great guest. Thank you for coming. Janet Galloway, bbstrategic.com, B&B Strategic Management, located in Southern Pines. We wish you a lot of luck down the road, and again, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Bill.
Fascinating. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thank you.